Hey guys, welcome to episode 8 of the Blue Mouse podcast. This is a knitting podcast with a little bit of a focus on knitwear design because I'm a full-time knitwear designer. If this is your first time checking out the podcast, welcome. My name's Emily. I run the Blue Mouse. And if you're a returning subscriber or a watcher, thank you for coming back. I so appreciate that you spend some time with me just knitting and chatting about all things knitting. I really enjoy the conversation that we get to have in the comments and on Instagram, so thank you so much for continuing to follow the podcast. So if you missed last week's episode, I am trying to podcast every single week now. I'm going to record on Thursdays and release on Fridays. So you should be seeing them every Friday. And I'm so glad that you're here just sitting and talking knitting with me. So I usually start my podcast out with a little bit of acquisitions. So I don't have a whole lot to share this week, which is good because I am actually not going to be buying any more yarn until at least the new year, except for a few Christmas gifts. So I already have some Christmas gifts planned out that I will need to buy yarn for, but in terms of anything else, I'm not buying any more yarn or anything until at least the new year. So this yarn was something that I pre-ordered, I think either the beginning of September or mid-September, and it got here just a few days ago. So I am so excited about this color. This is Autumn and Indigo Fibers. How gorgeous is that color? It's called Indian Summer. So this is her DK weight base, and it is 100% superwash merino with 231 yards per skein. So I got a whole sweater's quantity of this. So you are definitely going to be seeing a design in this colorway in the future, and I couldn't be more excited about it. I mean, just the color is so stunning. I can't get enough of it. So I was just anxiously awaiting an email that this stuff was on its way, and I was so excited to get it in the mail. It is even more gorgeous in person than it looked online. So when she posted this color last month, I saw it and I knew that it was the perfect fit for a new DK weight sweater design that I have in mind. So you'll probably be seeing that in the next couple months. So I'm excited about that. And then I have just one more skein. So it was my birthday yesterday and we had a family dinner, like a big family dinner with my parents and my brother and Johnny's parents and his brother's wife. So it was a big fun get together. We had a big dinner and my mom had just built this giant table so that all of us could sit and have dinner together at the same table. So at the end of dinner, Johnny's parents gave me a gift, and in it was this little skein of yarn. They had a little piece of paper in with the gift from the yarn store. So it's called a nautical yarn. It's in Ludington, Michigan. So I remember when they went there in June, I think, they sent me videos of the yarn store, and it was just this really cute little place, just floor to ceiling, filled with yarn. So they were pretty overwhelmed, and they were asking me what kind of yarn I liked. When they were texting me about it, I was just in a crazy sock knitting frenzy, so I told them I really love sock yarn. So they got me this Debbie Bliss Rialto luxury sock, which I have never worked with before, but it has this really gorgeous marled look to it. So the color is just number 7 is what it says. So it's a 75-25 blend, and I can't even imagine how gorgeous the socks are going to be just based off of the coloring. I mean, it's just stunning. So this is going to make a really gorgeous pair of socks, and I can't wait to start knitting on that. That might be my New Year's Eve cast on. I know I see people do that all the time on their podcasts, that they talk about having a special like New Year's Eve, or no, it's a Christmas, is it New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve? Now I don't remember. It might be Christmas Eve, but whichever it is, this might be my cast on for that night. That is everything I have for like acquisitions, and I don't have really any FOs, so I've got quite a few whips that I want to share with you. And these are just the things that I have been working on in the past week. So some are the same as last week, just with more progress, and some are different. And I do have actually one half object. So I'll put that on the sock blocker and show you. Alright, so I actually have new sock blockers. So I think I got these sock blockers in August, and I just haven't filmed a podcast where I've had a sock to show you. So you guys haven't seen them. But here's what it looks like without a sock on it, and they are just absolutely gorgeous. So these are handmade out of Norway, and I'll link them down below. If you look up Knitography, I think is her name, but I will link that all below if you want to find a pair of these for yourself. They're handmade, and the woman has a farm, and so she just takes scraps of wood that she finds, I think, around her farm, and laser cuts these herself. So I believe the woman's dream is to have a full functioning farm where she has sheep and she can make her own yarn. I'm sure you can find more about that on her website, and I just love the idea that we get to support someone's dream like that, and you get these gorgeous sock blockers in return. So I absolutely love them. They're gorgeous. I have not actually used them to block socks yet, but once I finish the second sock of this pair, I will do that. This is from Little Lionhead Knits, and it's called Across the Great Divide. So it's just this really gorgeous orange with beautiful speckling. And on this side you get a little bit of pooling, but I think it looks really pretty. So these are actually a gift for a friend of mine, and I am so behind. I wanted to have these done in July, I think was my plan. Here we are in October, and I've only finished the first one, but I have really lost my sock knitting mojo, which is bad because I have a lot of plans for Christmas knitting that are socks. So I'm going to have to get that back before then. But actually, when I was knitting on these in the beginning, I was like, these are just taking forever. And then when I took a break, a very long break granted, I picked them back up, and I think I was only to about here, and I knit the rest of this in like 2 hours, and then I was done. And I was like, oh, that was really fast actually. Maybe I should start the second one. So I have cast on the second one. I've made it about this far, not very far at all, like 1.5 inches, but the plan is to have them done in a couple weeks and then get them shipped off with the rest of the gift for this friend of mine. So yeah, we'll see if that happens. This is loosely based off of the Cabin 4 Marley pattern. So the pattern is called Marley, and it's by Cabin 4, but I did my own toe and I did my own heel. So really the only similarity is that there's a 2x2 ribbing in the main part. It's a modified version of that pattern, but I love the ribbed sock look where it's ribbed just on the top. I love the way it looks, and I love the way it fits. So most of my sock gifts in the future will probably be that same style. Alright, so next, I showed this to you last week, and I was not done with the main part of it, and now I am. And I'm on to the border. So this is my Hello Stella shawl, and I'm about halfway done with the border, but I'm doing this really fun applied knit border. I just love it. I've never done a knitted on or applied border. So basically what you do is you don't have to bind off, which is really nice. So you can see all of my live stitches here. So I have them, and then what I did is I cast on 20 some stitches in my color B on the same needle. And then essentially what you do is you knit down, and then you knit the last stitch of color B with your first stitch of color A. You knit them together, and then you turn around and you knit back up your color B to the end. So essentially what you're doing is you're knitting 2 rows of your border while also binding off 1 stitch from the main body of your shawl. So I find that to be really fun. I love the look of it so far. I can't wait to see how it looks when it's actually blocked out and in the correct shape. So I can just tell that this is going to be the most cozy shawl. I'm not a huge fan of single ply yarn, except when it's in a shawl, because I feel like that is the perfect use for it in my mind. So I know that this is just going to block out and be so beautiful and have just a tremendous drape. So this is kind of it so far. It's kind of hard to show you, but here is the border that I have so far. So I'm just plugging away at that, and I am, I think, a little bit more than halfway done. I think I had about 320 stitches that I need to bind off while also working the border. So halfway done, and I'll be taking it to home church tonight and hopefully getting quite a few more inches done on it. And maybe by the weekend it'll be done and off to my tech editor. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be just the most gorgeous shawl. So the yarn that I'm using is Hello Stella, and it is her single ply base. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head what that is called, so I'll put that in the show notes. But the purple here is November Rain, and then the speckled here is Shell Cottage. So November Rain and Shell Cottage, and they are just the best combo. Some of the speckles in Shell Cottage are the same purple as November Rain, so they just really go so well together. And I just love the delicate speckles. Even though it's pooling a little bit, I don't mind. I actually really like the way that it looks with the pooling. So the next one, I can't remember if I showed this to you last week or not. I think I did. But this is using Little Lotus Lane yarn, and the colorway is called Eden. So it's just this most gorgeous green. It's showing a little bit brighter on camera than it is in person. Actually, this is better. So this is a better color representation than me showing it up close on the screen. So I made quite a dent in this. It may not look like it, but I did. So I started the V-neck on the back, so you can see what that looks like. So it's going to have a deep V in the back and then just a normal length V-neck in the front. So I'm currently no longer working in the round because I've split for the V in the back, and I have probably another inch to go, and then I split for the sleeves and I just work the back, and then I'll work the front after those are done, and then I 3-needle bind off the shoulders and then do the sleeves, and I'm done. So it sounds very fast and easy when I talk about it that way, but it'll probably take me another week or two. But I'm hoping once I separate for the sleeves, it will go much faster. At the moment, having to work the entire back and front together, just going back and forth, especially when I'm purling, it takes a long time. So hopefully by next podcast, it will have an even bigger dent in it, and maybe I'll even be up to the front V-neck or done with the body entirely. So that is my next big project I'm working on. So I'm hoping to have this out for you guys by mid to late December. And yeah, I could not love the yarn more. It's a fingering weight 2-ply yarn, and I am alternating skeins because you always want to do that when you're working with hand-dyed yarn in sweaters, especially because you will get pooling. So I'm not getting any weird pooling or anything because I'm alternating skeins. So I've been having a lot of fun working on this project, and I can't wait to show you guys what the final result will look like. And I know I've been working on a lot of fingering weight sweaters, and while I love the feeling of them, I know a lot of you want to see more like DK and worsted and bulky weight sweaters. So I am contemplating the idea of, in the future, probably in like January or February, turning some of my fingering weight sweater patterns into a bulkier weight, like a worsted weight or something, so that you can choose if you want to knit it in fingering or worsted. So that's an idea I'm contemplating. We'll see if that actually happens, but that is my plan. All right, so I don't even know if any of you have seen this. This is probably something I showed you in one of the first 2 episodes of the podcast. So back in, what was that, April or something? And this is the project that got me on a sweater knitting kick, and it is the reason that I now design sweaters. So this is my Zweig. It is by Caitlin Hunter of Boyland Knitworks. I knit this with Madeline Tosh. I know that the bluish gray is Composition Book Gray, but I don't remember the name of this lighter color. I know it's in my Ravelry project page, so I'll put it below. But something that I think is really great if you're a knitwear designer, or even if you're not, but specifically for my other fellow knitting designers out there, something I find very, very helpful when you don't know how to do something is to follow someone else's pattern. So I had no idea how to knit a sweater, and I had no idea how to knit a seamless sweater, especially knit from the top down. And so I started working on this, and you can tell that I only really got a couple inches into the body. And that was when I started designing my Lofoten sweater. So I was knitting on this, and it just started to make sense to me. So I did more research besides just knitting this pattern. But knitting this pattern gave me the confidence to be like, okay, this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. So why couldn't I go ahead and design one of these patterns? So I did a lot of research and came up with my Lofoten sweater, but that would not have been possible if I hadn't started working on this Zweig. It helped me to understand how things worked. So I was terrified of short rows. I was like, I have no idea what these are. I don't know how they work. And then when I was following this pattern, I just looked up some tutorials and things like that. I was able to wrap my head around these concepts because I was following a pattern that wrote them out so clearly for me. So I think it's much easier when you're designing something to follow someone's pattern first, just so that you can wrap your head around it. It's not that you're, stealing their pattern, but it's so that you can understand how a certain technique works. So for example, if you don't know how to do shoulder shaping, then find a pattern that teaches you how to do shoulder shaping and follow the pattern so that you work it, and then do your own research to figure out, how you can add on to what you've learned. But that will just cover the basics for you. And I think it just gives you the confidence to, do it on your own. So that's something I've found incredibly helpful. Even just recently, I was struggling with how to write one of my own patterns and how to write two different stitch patterns going on at the same time. And so I took a break from that, and on vacation I was working on this other pattern, this other sweater that I was just following someone else's pattern, and they have you follow two stitch patterns at the same time. And it was written just so clearly, and I didn't know that you could write it in that way. So what the pattern did was it said follow chart A for this many stitches, then knit for this many stitches, and then follow chart B for this amount of stitches. And it just kept going in that manner. But that was something I didn't know you could do. I didn't know that you didn't have to write it out row by row by row for everybody, because I started out designing for beginners. So in my head, I'm still like, I have to write out every single thing. I have to spell out absolutely everything, which you don't have to do when you're not writing for beginners. So I still want to make the pattern as clear as possible, but I actually think that the way that they had it written was the clearest way possible. So that helped me figure out, okay, I can actually do that for one of my own patterns. So it just kind of opens up your mind to like, okay, I can write things this way, or this is a certain way of doing this technique, and now I know how to do it. Let's go learn some more stuff, like build on from that. But I find that just so, so helpful. Just every once in a while, take a step back from your own work and follow someone else's pattern, because you can really learn so much from other people. So with that, I'll just go straight into the last whip that I have. This is another Christmas gift. I told you I was kind of on top of it. At least last month I was. So this is the Brownstone sweater, and I believe it's by Jared Flood. I'll link it in the show notes, but I have most of the body done, and it's just a very simple stockinette pattern. And this was so fast. I mean, I worked this up in a few hours. It did not take long at all, and I think it's because I'm so used to working with fingering weight that when you switch over to worsted, it's just so fast. And I'm using, I'll have to look up the color because I forget, but this is Cascade 220, and it's just their worsted weight. So I'm actually working on 3 sweaters at the moment in Cascade 220. So I have 2 Christmas gifts, or I have 3 Christmas gifts, but one is going to become a pattern as well. So with those 3 projects I'm working on in this yarn, it's my first experience with it. So I'm getting to knit it up in both the DK weight and the worsted weight, and I really like it. It's a very budget-friendly yarn. I think each skein is maybe $10. I could be wrong, but I think it's about $10 or $11. So I think this sweater overall is going to be a total of about $60, which is really good for a hand knit sweater. So I am alternating skeins, but I don't really feel like I need to be. There's like no difference. I'm not seeing any difference between the colors of the skeins. There's no striping, there's no pooling. They're pretty much the exact same color. So I don't know that I'll keep alternating skeins in the yoke. But with that being said, I'm working on one of the sleeves, and I'm not alternating skeins for the sleeve. So, but I really can't see any difference. And I did a little bit of this morning. So I was up to here, and then this morning I worked the rest of it. So it is really fast. I mean, worsted weight sweaters are incredible. If you wanted to, I think you could finish one of these in like 3 days. So my favorite thing to do with sleeves is to get a pair of 12-inch circulars. So the 9-inch circulars are too small for my hands. They hurt my hands. But the 12-inch actually is perfect. It is the perfect circumference for sleeves, and you can decrease down to a very few amount of stitches and it still works. The one thing that I have to say is that I hold these a little bit differently when I knit. So I hold them, and my pinky, you can kind of see, is right there. So I get rubbed raw a little bit on my pinky, but I think I'm just going to wrap a band-aid around it and keep going. Other than that, these are the perfect needles. They just take a little bit of getting used to, but they are so much faster than Magic Loop or DPNs. So I cannot recommend these more. These are ChiaoGoo red lace needles, which is my go-to. I use them for absolutely everything now. So every project I have shown you today has been on ChiaoGoo red lace. They are my favorite. I have them in almost every size, if not multiple sets of each size, because I use them all the time. So the one thing that I am not liking about this pattern is that it is I believe it's a raglan sweater that is worked from the bottom up. So you have to knit the sleeves before you can finish the yoke. So you knit the body to a certain point, and then you knit both sleeves, and then you join the sleeves to the body. And the thing that I don't like about that is if you're gift knitting, you don't exactly know how the sleeves are going to fit. So they could end up being too long or too short. I'm just kind of trusting the pattern, and I'm going to try it on when it's done and kind of gauge how it's going to fit, because this is a gift for my brother, and I don't know how long his arms are, and I don't want him to know that he's getting a sweater, so to keep it a secret, I can't just go measure him. I might steal one of his sweaters and measure that, but even then, it's very hard to know when you're working from the bottom up that a sweater is going to fit. So that's my only issue. I thought about just casting on about this much and connecting the sleeves and doing a provisional cast on so I can just pick that up and go back down. But I think that you'll be able to see the difference in the direction of stitches. So I'm just following the pattern and trusting it and hoping that it'll work out. If it doesn't, I can always come back down here and pick up stitches and cut this off and work back the other way to fix it. So hopefully it'll work. Yeah, we'll see. that is everything that I had. So if you're curious, I'm wearing my Snowy Pines shawl, which is a 2-color brioche shawl that I put out in the spring, and it is well loved. I mean, it's just my favorite. So I wear this shawl every day. I rarely go outside without it. It is my favorite thing. I just cozy up in it. When I'm at home, I wear it like this, like a traditional shawl, and just let the sides fall down and kind of fold over the top so it's kind of like a collar. But when I go out, I wear it like a really big scarf. So I love the texture that brioche creates. And this was made in feather fin yarn in her Cashmerino DK. And I can not even begin to explain to you how cozy that is. We're actually talking about doing another shawl together, and I am beyond excited because her yarn is amazing. It is so luscious and so squishy when worked in the brioche. I mean, I can't even get started on how lovely this yarn is. It's amazing. But that's what I'm wearing. This sweater is not hand knit. I just bought it at a thrift store or something. But yeah, that is all the knitting content that I have this week. So I am going to talk a little bit about life updates and then we're done. So that is the rest of the knitting content though. So if you don't care to stick around, that's okay. I totally get it. Thanks for watching. I'll hopefully see you next week. But for the rest of you, it has been an insane week. It's been an insane few weeks actually. Just so busy to the point where I only get maybe an hour of work in a day, which for me like is so stressful. It's definitely taking some getting used to. I'm used to working like an insane amount of hours a week. So working only like an hour or two a day is like kind of maddening. But I think that's just kind of something I have to accept for the next couple weeks until everything for the wedding is planned. I don't know. I can't do anything else. Johnny actually thinks it's a good thing because he's like, thinks I need a break and I need to learn how to take a slower approach to work and a little bit more moderate approach, which I think he's right, because once we're married, I'm not going to be able to work, 16-hour days in a row. So it's good that I'm getting some practice in. I'm definitely going to work like a normal 9-to-5 week, but that is not what I am used to working. I'm used to working like 7 days a week and lots of hours. So this is the other extreme. I'm used to the extreme of working like crazy, and this is the extreme of not having time to work. And so once life slows down in a month or two, there's going to be more of that balance of, okay, this is a more normal work week. And so having this other extreme is probably good for me, but in the moment is pretty hard to do. I'm a workaholic, I guess. So it drives me nuts, but I'm learning to kind of get used to that and let it go. You can only do so much in a week, and I have to prioritize other things and then get work done. So patterns will be out a little bit slower for the next couple months, but then after that it should be fairly back to normal. So I don't think a whole lot else went on this week other than wedding planning and a little bit of work. I talked about a little bit earlier how we had a birthday dinner last night. So big family came over and my family was there, and I cooked dinner and we had like chicken and roasted veggies and this amazing salad, and I made a cheesecake, which I've never done before, and it turned out really good. People seemed to like it, so it was just a lot of fun. We just all sat around the table and talked and laughed for hours, and it was just really, really encouraging and fun and kind of just filled my heart up. It's been a pretty overwhelming and exhausting few weeks, so just to be able to sit with my family and my future family together and all enjoying each other, it was just a really huge blessing. I am so grateful that both of our families are enjoyable and around and present, and that we get to have relationships with everybody. Yeah, I don't want to take that for granted, and it just made me very grateful and very excited for many, many more dinners like that. So I wrote a very sappy post on my Instagram about that you can find. It's the one with my Husavik sweater and the rings. Yeah, so I think that is everything. That's all caught up on knitting and life. So I will see you guys next week. I hope you have lots of fun knitting time and family time in the next week. And if you're going to Rhinebeck, have an incredible time, and please film everything. I'm going to live vicariously through you all, so yeah, film all the vlogs, all the videos, and Instagram stories. I can't wait to see it all. So have a great week. I'll see you next time.